and the weightless text he swore wasn't his. The night a table for two said my name. At 9:08 p.m., my phone buzzed with a kind of optimism we don't allow in our kitchen. "Your table for two is ready," the text chirped. "Please see the host at Nocturne. Reply hold to keep this spot." Beneath it, a line that should have been boring became a problem. Reservation under Adrian. Not the spelling he uses for email, but the one restaurants always guess when the host is busy, and a man smiles like he doesn't mind being corrected. He'd left at 8 in the jacket that flatters him even when mirrors start evangelizing. "Wrap toast," he said, two words that make celebration sound like minutes outsourced to a calendar. Then notes with Soren. "Don't wait." Soren handles sound. He carries microphones like small animals and listens as if he's sworn an oath to air. The cinnamon thing in the oven was doing its quiet best to represent mercy. The light in our apartment climbed the wall in neat squares and refused to narrate me. I set the phone face down the way we promised to on decent mornings. It lit up again under the screen like a heartbeat arguing with itself. The same message, one word added: "Bar seats available now." The app keeps our shared profile because convenience and trust use the same fonts. It remembered his name and my number. A small, polite map offered directions as if betrayal were a neighborhood worth visiting. Nocturne sits on top of a glass cube that pretends to be humble about its views. The elevator gives you a mirror and spells your name backward. I offered it a face that could pass inspection. Upstairs, the host stand glows like a confessional with a dress code. I showed the text. The host checked the list, her finger sliding over names like small, discreet verdicts. "Two for Adrian," she said, the kind of kindness that doubles as a test. "Your party." "Here," I said. "I don't lie to strangers unless it's necessary. Other guest running late. I'll wait at the bar." Nocturne's bar curves like an argument that plans to win by appearing inevitable. Bottles watched me with the rehearsed modesty of glass. A server set down water with a sprig of something called an herb at the moment it felt performative. At the far end, usually empty because rich people hate corners, I found the opposite of an accident. Two napkins in a neat stack, two coasters touching. The host's little brass plaque that read "Reserved" turned slightly toward the city like an apology. He walked in with Soren at his shoulder, both carrying their intentions incorrectly. Adrian saw me first. Our particular choreography of surprise landed on his mouth, then tried to retreat and found no pocket. He is a man who has learned to let his face go neutral in public. Soren, taller, unbusy, looked straight at me the way people do when they don't intend to witness you without permission. "Caleb," Adrian said, my name with the softness of a receipt. "Your weightless thinks I'm part of you," I said, because humor is the leash I use to keep panic from bolting. I lifted the screen. It glowed the color of a mistake that still believes it's an opportunity. Soren's eyes moved once to the brass plaque, once to my hands, then to the bartender who had chosen to be furniture. "I can give you to the table," he said, "not martyrdom, logistics." He gestured toward the terrace door, half open to the kind of night that rewards careful mouths, and stayed exactly where politeness would keep him. "Not here," Adrian said, glancing at the ceiling corner where a camera pretended to be a moon. He tipped his head toward the service corridor, the unphotogenic path to the staff stair. Concrete, metal, all the ways buildings learn to be honest. There's air. The stairwell smelled like citrus and ambition. Somewhere below, ice learned how to become a scene partner. We stood on a landing with a view of a wall, which is the best kind of privacy in a city that overachieves at reflection. "I lied when I left," he said. He doesn't waste adjectives when he intends to be correct. Rap happened. People tried their best grammar on goodbye. I told myself I wanted 30 minutes where being interesting didn't have to pass inspection. Soren, I said, because names are handles and I like my hands full when the floor tilts. He nodded. The stairwell hummed its HVAC hymn. Through the door's wired glass, the bar's light layered itself like expensive indecision. Are you sleeping with him? The question is a cliff. There isn't a scenic route. You count to one and make your mouth earn its keep. Not yet, he said, clean, immediate. Then lower, the honesty that knows exactly which muscle wants to bruise. I brought my mouth. Air narrowed. I lifted 2 fingers to the inside of his wrist where men keep their apologies and felt his pulse write my name there without permission. His eyes closed like doors that were built to be touched. At the small of his back, where his body keeps its best arguments, heat had already paid the cover. My palm remembered the root. You like wanting that proves something kindness can't, I said. I didn't make it cruel. Cruelty is lazy precision. You treat intimacy like a sport and honesty like off-season training. You like to coach, he said, one corner of his mouth attempting a bad idea and failing politely. Which is unfair and also why we still have furniture. What do you want? I asked. Now not the apology you drafted for daylight. He stepped into the inch that becomes a lie if you respect it too long. Heat ran across cotton like a fact. He spoke close enough that punctuation found my lower lip. I want to go home, he said. I want you to want me where our towels remember us and desire doesn't arrive with a host stand. Behind us, the door side open on its hinge. Soren stood there, not crossing the threshold, not pretending he wasn't choosing. He lifted a hand at shoulder height, the smallest semaphore for I'll be absent if you need it. I did not hate him. I disliked the geometry. I kissed Adrian. Not hunger first. Relief. Relief is the kind of appetite you can escort past strangers without inviting votes. He leaned into it like a debt that finally liked its math. The wire in the glass cut our reflection into squares that would have offended a less patient mirror. He made the low sound he never manages on cue, the one that convinces me our kitchen is holy. I stopped before concrete could pretend to be a witness. He kept his forehead near mine because punctuation outperforms grammar in places that smell like lemons. We went back through the door. At the host stand, the brass plaque had lost interest in our names. Soren said he had an early call, thanked the bartender for pretending nothing happened, and gave Adrian the nod men use when they're choosing to be furniture on purpose. Then he left with the kind of walk that knows footsteps shouldn't make statements. We didn't sit. We told the host we'd return another night and let her keep the table for someone whose heart didn't object to eating. The elevator mirrored us without asking for translation. On the street, weather declined to narrate us. I loved it for that. At home, the cinnamon had waited with the unreasonable loyalty of sugar. We ate it at the counter with our fingers because forks would have lied. He leaned into the drawer that sticks, the posture that means he's willing to be moved and wants me to be precise about how. I slid my palm under his shirt and found heat like an address that still prints both our names on the mail. He tipped into me, gratitude giving him weight and accuracy. We were careful in bed, not the kind of careful that kills heat, the kind that knows where to fold it, how to keep a room from becoming evidence. He knows where to set his hand on my ribs so the rest of me turns without issuing a press release. I know where his shoulder hides when it runs out of brave, and how to coax it into telling the truth with weight and breath and a mouth that has stopped trying to rescue him and still wants him. I won't diagram it. I'll tell you the room remembered to breathe, and morning forgave us because it had other work. We slept like people who aren't finished. Light shouldered the blinds with the authority of a suggestion. He made coffee the way he does when he wants me to listen. I opened the window and let the day put its hands on my face. The waitlist app lived between us on the table like a witness that didn't understand jurisdiction. Adrian, party of two. He started with small truths because small truths keep larger ones upright. The notes had run long. The restaurant felt like a better room for a bad idea than our apartment. Soren's attention had the grammar he wanted to try on. Then he ran out of script and said the part I could keep. He said he is tired of being interesting for a living, tired of being curated, captioned, archived. He said he wanted to be wanted like teenagers are, stupid, earnest, badly lit, forgiven in advance. He said he imagined my mouth more than once on that service landing and hated the math. He said he was sorry like a man who knows sorry is a tool, not an eraser. I didn't forgive him at the table. Forgiveness is a daylight animal in morning's charge. I told him to put on the coat that doesn't belong to penthouses and walk with me to the canal where water lies about Paris, and we let it. We sat on the bench we claim when we're trying to be correct. Pigeons performed competence. A runner's breath taught our bodies cadence we could afford. He hooked his thumb into my pocket like humility. I let him. 2 afternoons later, I met Soren at a studio lobby that smells like ambition and lemon, the city's favorite cologne when it wants to look clean. He gave me the nod men use when they have chosen to be furniture on purpose. He didn't apologize and I didn't deputize. We stood beside a vending machine that pretended to be modern. "I'm not a better man," he said without preface. "I'm just trained to listen for feedback. The air in that stairwell told me who it belonged to." He looked at my face with the accuracy of a person who knows where quiet hides. "You don't need my testimony, but if it helps," he kissed me once. I told him he was saying it in the wrong room. "Why tell me?" I asked. Pride misplaced the volume knob. It came out quieter than my jaw allowed. "Because it'll be better for both of you if you don't have to guess that the worst thing happened when it didn't," he half smiled. "Your life deserves the full budget of truth." That night we made boring plans. We deleted the shared reservation profile because no app needs to rehearse our appetite. We renamed the restaurant at the corner hours even though they still oversalt the soup. We set an agreement. If one of us wants 30 minutes of attention that isn't from the other, we call it craving, not crisis, and we walk through it at the bakery with eclairs mean enough to distract a saint. It isn't romantic. It's maintenance. It's oil on the hinge that keeps the door from learning to shout. It didn't end tidy. A week later at exactly 9:08 again, my phone buzzed with a waitlist ping for a bistro we never liked. The name was wrong in a familiar way. Adrian +1. I looked across the room at him, already reaching for his coat like a man trying to outrun a pattern. He stopped, hands open, and laughed, not the cruel kind, the relieved kind that sounds like metal loosening. "It's from last month," he said, flipping his screen to show me the ghost of a reservation he'd never canceled. The app had decided to resurrect it. He pressed and held and deleted. Then he came to where I was and set his palm where my back keeps its heat and looked like the person who had finally learned the shape of the word home. On certain nights when the city forgets to be clever, his mouth finds mine with the urgency thunder belongs to and the patience laundry requires. We stay just on the lawful side of the line, because good heat doesn't need choreography to be true. When it's done with us, when we are done with it, he waits with his hand at the small of my back as if he's holding a page open for daylight. If a host stand ever texts me again at 9:08 p.m. to announce a table for two I didn't ask for, if a room volunteers to be our narrator when we already know the story, I believe I know the script. I'll look at him and he'll look at me and we'll decide, quietly, domestically, with the stubborn mercy of people who keep choosing, to side with our kitchen over the skyline, with our chipped mugs over someone else's linen, with this particular door learning, over and over, to open from the inside. Two more small things, because lives like encores. First, we changed the name the bakery writes on our box. No more Adrian or Caleb with someone guessing the vowels. We made it both. The woman behind the counter grinned as if she'd been waiting all year to write that. Second, I kept the original text, the one that said table for two as if it were a kindness. I didn't keep it to punish either of us. I kept it because sometimes a clean, ugly receipt is how you know where the story pivoted. It's how you remember that the night chose us to be honest, and we, inconveniently human, chose back.